Hello. Hi. All right. Well, welcome to History Chats this afternoon. Let's see. There we go. Good. Just double checking the sound coming through. Welcome to History Chats this afternoon. We're going to get started in just a minute here with a continuation of our People You Should Know series for the month. Yeah, let me just tell you about some stuff that's coming up. We just, this past weekend, had our last History Speaks, the Tuba Ted documentary. So now we're looking forward to the next one, which actually I'm going to be presenting. So I'm looking forward to that. Well, we'll see once I get there. Yeah. That's going to be a brilliant future. So in conjunction with the celebration for the 150th of the city of Wausau, 150 years since the city charter, seems like it's a good time to celebrate that history and talk about the development of that city from the beginning years of lumbering to what it is today. So that's what we're going to be talking about. This is going to be on July 16th at 2 p.m. on Saturday. So if you're interested in that, and I will hopefully be live streaming this as well, but you never know. So if they have the opportunity and you can come in, should do that. I promise it'll be a fun time. Yeah. Okay. So we're going to get started here. We'll maybe talk about what's coming up next week for the History Chats towards the end here. It seems like that is a good place to do. Yeah, we're going to get started here with, Vilas Machmueller. And so I'm going to introduce Gary Gisselman, and he's going to tell you all about him.
Okay, thank you, Ben. Well, in this series of History Chats and People You Should Know, if you've listened to and watched a few of these in the past, we've hit a variety of different peoples throughout Marathon County and the city of Wausau. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about Vilas Machmueller. His place in history is certainly well known. His whole breadth of his history certainly runs through a good part of the recent part of Marathon County history. And we want to recount that a little bit this afternoon. His place is certainly guaranteed in the history of Marathon County and a variety of different places. So we'll talk about that. But just a little bit about Vilas, born in 1928 here in Marathon County. Married Sharon, and after Sharon died, he married Rose in 1994. Spent some time with the United States Navy. He worked at the Rothschild's paper mill, at one time Weyerhaeuser, now Domtar. And then his civic life, Weston Sanitary District, Marathon County Board of Supervisors, Town of Weston Supervisor, and the Village of Weston President in 1996 as it became incorporated as a village. He passed in 2008. So, Vilas Machmueller, 1928 to 2008, labeled as a village visionary. And I sort of picked him out as one of the key people in the history of Weston. And this is not to diminish, or I just want to highlight some of the other key people in the history of Weston throughout its early history, especially since World War II. There were a lot of people that played a part in the development of the town as well as the village throughout its history. There's a lot of history to be made and a lot of history to be written about with regard to the town of Weston. And Vilas Machmueller had a big part to play in that history. I want to give credit and notice to the oral history project of the DC Everest area schools. Of course, Mr. Machmueller's story is recounted in, I'm sure, in village minutes, in town minutes, a variety of stories. But the Everest School District, through the leadership of Paul Alexson, had at least 3 interviews with Mr. Machmueller. One is in the book Local Voices. Another one is in the history that they did with regard to Korean War veterans, and then in the 150th anniversary, I think it was 150th anniversary of the Weston community, they did also another oral interview, and Mr. Machmueller is in there, and and these were valuable interviews. We thank goodness for the Oral History Project at Everest for not only these three volumes, but there are many more volumes that recount the history of Marathon County in a variety of different ways, all through people's interviews. So it's really an incredible resource, and we thank the Everest School District for producing that legacy that will continue to be, and these will always be at the Marathon County Public Library for sure. So please feel free to go into these volumes for further research into the people's lives of Marathon County. With this specific volume, they felt very strongly at that time, they dedicated this volume on the Weston community to Mr. Machmueller, and I think that they were very strong in their sentiment about his role in the history and the town as well as the village of Weston. So we start here in the town of Weston. Pretty much, what we know. Schofield, a little bit of Rockchild, pretty much that a little south of Wausau, Highway 29 coming through it, the Eau Claire River, pretty much the Weston that we know. And if we narrow in a little bit, on a little bit south of Schofield, we find the Paul Machmueller, 40 plus acres there in the town of Weston. It's pretty much where they named the street after Mr. Machmueller. Machmueller Street is there in front of what now is the Everest Junior High. At one time it was the Everest Senior High, of course. But that is Machmueller, because that basically is where the Machmueller farm was back in the day around World War II and before, when Mr. Machmueller's parents had that farm. And of course, in addition to naming the street after Mr. Machmueller, the town of Weston, the village of Weston, that corrected, the village of Weston named a park after Mr. Machmueller. This park dedicated in 2004. A jointly funded project. Quite proud of him at that time in 2004 for his work in the village. So let's take it. We've already recounted the fact that he grew up on that farm, on the Machmueller farm. Went to high school. He left high school to join the Navy soon after, as World War II was concluding. This picture of him, he's wearing the cap of the USS Albany, which was a reunion that he went to. The USS Albany was the ship that he served on after he left Wausau, joined the Navy right immediately, pretty much right as World War II was concluding. He served his time on the USS Albany, served his time in the Navy, and after that he came back to Marathon County to work at the mill. But then as soon as the Korean War started, he enlisted again in the Navy and was assigned to the USS Comstock in the Korean waters during the Korean War. And there's the little snippet I found. there was their grandparents' anniversary of some sort. Anyways, the story that Vilas was a fireman in the Navy and who had been on several trips to Korea in the past 8 months, obtained a 30-day leave so he could be present for the celebration of his grandparents. He departed last evening for California. So again, he was very involved with the United States Navy and quite proud of his service in the Navy, especially during the Korean War. But then soon thereafter, we can skip ahead to 1960 when he starts to demonstrate his civic obligations. It was in 1960 that he started as the secretary of the Weston Sanitary District in the town of Weston. That whole movement of the Weston area, also Remountain, the Rockchild, Schofield, all sort of combining into sanitary districts at that time. And he took a role in 1960 as a secretary of the district. He also was involved with the Marathon County Board. This is a picture of in 1978. And I just want to make reference, if there's any historians out there, future historians, and if they want to take a look at the history of Marathon County from 78 or 76 after the Lawrence Cloyder book on Marathon County, and start with this group. In addition, Mr. Machmueller is here, but you're seeing other key people that were really influential in the history and the development of Marathon County towards the end of the 1900s and well into the 21st century. Mr. Ott, this clerk, you can see some of their names. They are very, very influential county board people, and Mr. Machmueller was a part of that for many, many years. But so then, serving on the town board also. But then in 1996, Chairman Vilas Machmueller, Administrator William Forrest answered questions about the question with regard to informing the plans to incorporate Weston into a village. So Weston was continuing to grow, and through a variety of different circumstances that the people in Weston decided that perhaps they should start to move from a town into a village. So the talk was starting in 96. This is again the picture of that. So we'll see shortly what happened to that map of Weston. So here we go. Weston's special election to pick the new village board. Mr. Machmueller was planning. Town board chairman Vilas Machmueller is running for village president. So now the elections in 96 for the new village board and Mr. Machmueller as president of the proposed village. Again, this is a recent picture that was taken of him for the oral history project. And then I'm just recounting a little bit the incorporation referendums that the people went through in Weston to gather into incorporate into a village. And then this would be what it is today, the village of Weston, taking up a good part of the town of Weston, the town in the white, and then Rockchild's also on the bottom right. So a very large village today in Marathon County. And this is the election ballot in 96, Vilas Machmueller running for president. And some of the people here, Mr. Schuster, Barb Ermeling, those some names that were continually relevant with regard to the development of the village of Weston. And then, of course, Mr. Machmueller, was elected as the new village president. And here he is. I think he took great pride in how he acted and moved throughout the village. Very proud of the town as well as the village of Weston. Here he is at one of the local parks in Weston. And then he continued to be elected, and a very strong acknowledgement of his popularity and his experience throughout the years as president of the village. Here he is. I think they must be close to a mountain. I think that's a Mountain Bay sign, most likely inaugurating the Mountain Bay Trail. The governor Doyle there in the white shirt, as well as Representatives Decker and Huber, gracing this picture also. So again, always stepping forward to promote the village of Weston, whatever it takes, and this is a little evidence of that. Experience. So again, the paper acknowledging his qualifications, 30 years in the sanitary district, town and village government. Machmueller offers a wealth of practical knowledge with regard to that, and endorsed by fellow governmental leaders in Wausau and Marathon County. And here he is again, cutting the ribbon for another park in the village of Weston. And here he is, always a good part of the village. And I just want to conclude. I'll conclude with this picture again, but I just want to reaffirm again what people have said in one of the forewords to the. In fact, most of what you see around you today is because of his vision and his hard work to make our community a better place to live. He was a consummate policymaker and politician who was just as comfortable talking to the governor as he was shooting the breeze with his fellow workers at the paper mill. He lived, bled, and breathed Weston 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And he was, I think, more than anyone, or at least a good part of the people, part of that history. For instance, from 1996 to 2008, the village grew from 8,900 to 15,000 residents. The Everest Metro Police was formed. He took great pride in the development of St. Clair's Hospital, what was then called St. Clair's Hospital. He was really a consummate leader, a consummate person in the town of Weston, as well as the village of Weston, and in the history of Marathon County. A great leader and a person that you should know a little bit about. And if, again, like I said, if there are historians, future historians, you can take a look at Vilas Machmueller as a person who really deserves much more than this little brief chat as far as his role in the history of Marathon County. So it was great pleasure in doing this. These little episodes, and I give credit back to the Everest School District for their oral histories that they produced that included Mr. Machmueller in them. Also a great resource for future historians. So with that, I turned it back to Ben.
Hey, yeah, awesome. Yeah, interesting thing. We don't generally get to talk about. He's pretty contemporary for us. We tend to deal with people that we have stuff from 50 years or more from, but still important to talk about our neighbors in Weston, or part of our community too. Yeah. So I guess I'll check to see if any questions have come up. In the meantime, let me just mention, so History Chats, we're going to continue our theme. Next week, we're going to be talking about Ted Mayer. Some of you may remember the C.B. Mayer Shoe Company. Well, Mayer was one of the one of the sons of C.B. Mayer, and ends up having an important role in running that that company. But he was also a pretty talented artist. So there's an interesting combination here of artistic development here, and making advertisements for the shoe company as well as running a local business. So it'll be an interesting topic. That's going to be next week, concluding our, well, not concluding, because actually there's 5 weeks here in what are we in? June. Yeah, June. We're still in June. Yeah, so then we're going to have one more week coming up at the end of the month. So we'll have to tune in to see what that guest might be, or perhaps not. But we'll get into that later. So anyway, I'm just going to check real quick to see if anything comes up. But yeah, I think we'll call it there. Anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.